What's up, guys? Simone Fan 101 here. I am back, and this is my Slammiversary review. I actually just finished the show a few minutes ago. I watched it this morning, just finished the show, and overall, I gotta say, this show is actually better than the last few WWE pay-per-views that we have gotten. Oh, out of an 8-match card, only one of the matches was not that good. All the other matches were good. A couple of them were very good. Hell, one of them was excellent. I'll get to that. This show was also the first show, technically, under the GFW banner. A couple of days ago, there was an announcement that the TNA initials are dead. The company is no longer called TNA or called Impact Wrestling, although the show is still called Impact. The company rebranded its name into Global Force Wrestling. Yes, the same company that Jeff Jarrett created like a few years ago couldn't get a TV deal to save his life, and basically merged with TNA, and they decided to use the GFW name because the GFW name because the TNA name was so tainted. It was a poisoned name. It needed to be rebranded, and so it was. Now, the show. This is technically the first show, although it still is called the 15th edition of Slammiversary. So we're not getting a new company so much as it's got a rebranding. So most likely we're probably still keeping some shows like Slammiversary and Bound for Glory. Now, as far as the show itself, really good show. Hell, it kicked off with a fantastic opener. Although before that, I might as well. Apparently, there was a pre-show. I didn't watch it. I heard it was okay, but I didn't watch it. It was KM, Congo Kong, and Laurel Van Ness against Mahabali Shera, Braxton Sutter, and Ali. From what I heard, it was an okay match with Ali actually getting the pinfall. Actually, oh no, he didn't. She didn't get the pinfall. Sutter did. Drinking my blood juice. I'm just kidding. It's just Powerade. Anyway, it was a good match. And it was a nice little match to start the pre-show. Now, the show didn't start off with a match, at least not yet. The show started off with an owl, the Anthem Owl, flying into the ring, and landing on like a perch, and you see like a close-up of the owl. Yeah. As Rebby Hardy once said, fuck that owl. Another thing that was noticeable was the constant musical theme throughout the night. Basically, they used it was basically a ripoff, but not so much. They used a variation of the Rocky War theme that was used between the fight with Rocky and Ivan Drago at the end of Rocky 4. So, like if you watched Rocky 4. You heard that song, you heard this song, you couldn't help but tell the similarities. But I will say, one thing that this show had that was a lot better than TNA TV has been, especially this year, was better announcing. We got Don West and Robert Flores on announcing, and it made me feel so happy to hear Don West on commentary again. That made me feel happy. So we had WrestleManias. Like, GFW wishes they had WrestleMania. They had representatives from the Crash, AAA, and Noah Promotions, as well as the Anthem president Ed Nordholm. The opening match was the tag team title match between with defending champions LAX, again, Santana and Ortiz Wrestling against participants from these previous promotions, Crash, AAA, and Pro Wrestling Noah. There was Garza Jr. and Laredo Kid from the Crash promotion, Naomichi Marufuji and Taiji Ishimori from the Noah promotion, and El Hijo de Fantasma and Drago from the AAA promotion. Yes, that Drago, also from Lucha Underground. And just if you're out of curiosity, and just in case you're curious, El Hijo de Fantasma, if you don't know who he is, he's basically King Cuerno. Yes, that is King Cuerno under that mask. So, if he looks similar, if that suicide dive that he hit earlier looked very similar to King Cuerno, it's because that was King Cuerno. And let's see here. They all came out. Conan, Homicide, and Diamante were at ringside. And they said this would be contested under Lucha rules. What that means, it's basically a tornado match. No tags need to be made. Anybody can score any kind of pinfall. Everybody's legal. That's basically what I got out of this. And there was, but in the beginning of the match, it did confuse me for a second, because at the beginning of the match, everyone was on the apron, almost like in their own respective corners. I guess they were trying to do it out of respect in the beginning, and just to see, and just sizing each other up. Sorry about that. You know, we had Santana and Marufuji. It was so glad to see Marufuji in there. They worked chops, which of course, you know, if you watch New Japan Marufuji matches, you know that they hurt. You know, after that, Laredo Kid came in, hit a few moves. After that was Ishimori. After that was, I believe, Ortiz. And then it was Garza Jr., who is, of course, the son of Hector Garza, who you may recognize the name. And then all of a sudden, Fantasma and Drago basically said, fuck this, and they just went in there and kicked everybody's ass. That was awesome. There was a ton of moves that were hit during this show. And during this match, but also the show, but during the match, there was a ton of moves that were hit. And, it made for a really great match. There was one slightly botched spot where Drago was supposed to go for a top rope splash, but then slipped off the the rope. Thankfully, Fantasma quickly hit he quickly hit a leg drop on. I believe it was Ortiz that they were going to hit the move on. Oh, my neck. Sorry about that. It was a little bit weird. But there was also a lot of dives in this match. Ishimori and Drago, I've learned, do the same kind of dive. Apparently. Another thing that I realized, and this wasn't just in the match. Throughout the whole show, when they would do dives, they would do dives to this one particular part of the match. Not the one particular part, but one particular side of the ring. And apparently it was made obvious why later, because at that side of at the ring side, in the front row of the crowd, Robert Irvine was there. And when I saw Robert Irvine earlier, I'm like, okay, Gail Kim's on the show somewhere. We didn't actually see him until like the 4th or 5th match in, but he was very much a part of the show in terms of watching it. What can I say? I love my Powerade. This match was like I said, this was actually the best match of the night. This was the opening match, but it turned out to be the best match of the night. There was a contender there was a contender later on, but for the most part, this was the best match of the night. We did get constant interference. Not constant. we did get interference from Diamante, which I will say, and here's the thing. I get that LAX is over, but the problem, and this is just me, but it was made really apparent later on when there was, I would call it Jeff Jarrett style overbooking, where there was too much interference, there was too much going on. They played it down here, which is definitely a good thing. But there was a interference from Diamante. She tried to do a Hurricane Rana to Fantasma. I believe it was Fantasma. And then he just flipped her, not flipped her off, but like flipped her, put her in a powerbomb spot and then flipped her above. She landed on her feet. Later, she tried again to interfere. This time, she actually was thrown over, and Homicide tried interfering. He got the vertebreaker on. It was a safe looking vertebreaker though, but a vertebreaker nonetheless on what was his name? It wasn't Fantasma. I believe it was actually Garza. It was actually Garza Jr. It was Garza Jr. that got the vertebreaker. It was on the apron too, so I think there was a reason why that was safe, because that move would have hurt big time. At that point, I think that was later in the match. One spot I completely forgot about. I completely forgot about this. One spot was, speaking of Garza Jr., he had Ortiz in like a fall-away slam position. Santana went up, I guess, to try to deliver Hurricane Rana, but he got caught on top of Ortiz in more of a powerbomb spot. And then Laredo Kid, who, by the way, was wearing a mask that looked like Kalisto, went for not a sling blade from the top turnbuckle, but more like kind of like a neck breaker. Anyway, he basically aimed for the guy's body. It was not a crossbody, but it might as well have been. And he basically pulled down Santana from the top turnbuckle at the same time pulling down Garza Jr. for just a front slam, which was good. I got as far as the best team on the show. It's got to be a tie between the Noah team and the AAA team, because that slip up by AAA though. But although they immediately redeemed themselves with a cool-looking DDT spot, which of course made me happy. It did feel weird though to see Fantasma, with long hair past his mask. He must have grown out his hair since he played the King Cuerno character, because he's not on Lucha Underground Season 3. There was another spot in this match that was really cool. Santana was going to go for a moonsault on Drago, who was in the ring on the floor. He was laying back in the ring. Garza Jr. came up and was attacking Santana. Laredo Kid came up on the other side of the ring to attack and remember, Garza Jr. and Laredo Kid were on the apron. Santana was on the inside of the ring going up the turnbuckle. And then all of a sudden, all three of them hit moonsaults. And I replayed it a couple times to find out why. Santana hit a moonsault on Drago, as we were figuring out. But later, Laredo Kid hit a moonsault, and we could barely see it on camera, but only for like a fleeting second. Laredo Kid hit a moonsault on Fantasma, while Garza Jr. hit a moonsault on Ortiz. That was a cool spot. There was all kinds of more flips and kicks and shit in this match, which was cool to watch. Of course, Fantasma at one point hit his patented tope, suicide dive through the middle ropes. There was another spot where he hit his package tombstone pile driver. That was awesome. I think he hit it on Ortiz. Then he and Marufuji went at it, which was cool. That was stiff, though. It was stiff, but it was cool. And that's when he hit the tope. This is also when LAX really started interfering. Conan interfered. Homicide hit the vertebraker on Garza Jr. More offense in from several of the guys like Ishimori and Drago, who seem to be going at it more than with each other than anybody else in the match. There was a cool spot. I think the last really cool spot of the match, aside from the finisher, of course, was Garza, not Garza Jr. Laredo Kid hit a Spanish fly from the top rope on Santana for a fun near fall. That was awesome. After a belly to belly, a quick counter belly to belly suplex from the top rope to Laredo Kid by Ortiz, they hit their finisher, which is, I forget the name of the move, but I'm pretty sure there's a name to it. But Santana has no, not Santana. Ortiz has a Laredo Kid in a powerbomb position, and while he does the sit-up powerbomb, Santana goes for a blockbuster powerbomb combination, and LAX won. And look, I think at some point, maybe it was a good selling, but at some point, I think Diamante, who even though it has a cool name, is a woman. She got hurt. She got like her leg hurt, I think, sometime in the match. I will say though that there was a little, even it's kind of like with New Day. Even though they're faces, and LAX, they're not faces as much as they are tweeners, so I guess it's a little bit okay with them. Not as much though. A little bit more okay than New Day, but New Day, like, you get, like, here's the thing with New Day. They're baby faces, but yet Xavier Wood constantly interferes in the matches when New Day is about to lose. So, and you're a baby face. You shouldn't be doing that. Yet they do it anyway. At least here it makes more sense. LAX, they're not exactly baby faces. They're over, but they're not baby faces. They're tweeners. At times they could be baby faces. At times they could be heels. But that ended up being the best match of the night. I'm sorry I had to talk about all the spots, but come on, that was a great match. Next match, and speaking of great, next match was Moose and NFL football player DeAngelo Williams against the team of Chris Adonis, the former Chris Masters, and Eli Drake. It was a quick 10-minute tag team match, but my God, this match was actually kind of fun. Why? Because DeAngelo Williams was awesome. I think out of all the football players and celebrities who have done matches, even more so than the guy who played Arrow and was in that tag team match with Neville at SummerSlam a couple of years back, even with that in the equation, I think DeAngelo Williams is probably the best celebrity technically to have wrestled a match. He's a football player. He's 34 years old, so he's still somewhat young for a wrestler. But he did not look out of place. He wasn't in there doing like freaking Hurricane Ranas or doing somersault planchas or anything. But he was in there doing moves. He looked natural. I mean, with a little bit more training, this guy could actually be really good. I mean, this guy could be like the Black DDP of TNA. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing. I say that even though that was a phrase DDP used. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Oh, my lord. But he didn't look out of place. He did. There was like one flip. It wasn't like a flip over the top rope, but it was more like a flip during in-ring like wrestling. He had a couple arm drags. He even stole a move. A little bit off course, but he stole a move at a Kevin Owens playbook where he would do a running not a somersault, but like a running cannonball to the corner. He even did that. And even though it was a little bit off course, it looked natural the way he was doing it. Moose was in there. He did more of the work than DeAngelo Williams, of course, try to make sure he didn't look gassed. Because remember, this is still technically DeAngelo Williams' first ever match. And there was one botched spot where Eli Drake was going to come off the ropes for something, but then completely slipped off. Crowd did boo, but they were able to work back up. despite that botch. I mean, he even, and after they worked the heat on Moose for a little bit, not too long, thankfully, he tagged in DeAngelo Williams. Eli Drake came in, or was still in, whatever. And at one point, DeAngelo Williams even hit like a code breaker. And then after that, a Samoan drop. I mean, and a moonsault. He had a code breaker, Samoan drop, moonsault. He was doing neck breakers. This guy looked natural. He looked like a natural wrestler. And there was one cool looking double move where DeAngelo Williams climbed on top of Moose and they both hit a running senton on top of Chris Adonis. Then there was a table spot, and I don't know why. And this was a recurring theme throughout the night, at least one of the matches. I don't know why the referee didn't count for a DQ here, other than, I guess, it's the first night, just don't DQ him, like Lucha Underground does with Dario Cueto all the time. So the ending of the match was basically Moose was going to be set up on a table in the middle of the ring, even though Moose and DeAngelo Williams brought out the table. Adonis and Drake set up the table. They put Moose on the table. Earlier, a couple seconds later, Williams was thrown to the ring steps. Moose hit a couple kicks. He fought. Actually, no. Williams pushed Eli Drake off the top turnbuckle. Then Moose hit a bicycle kick to Chris Adonis' face, and then set up Adonis on the table. And what happened was, the spot was going to be DeAngelo Williams will hit a frog splash from the top rope through the table onto Adonis. He hit the frog splash, but he overshot it just a little bit. He overshot it a little bit, and because it was set a little bit close to the turnbuckle, but he overshot it a little bit, and the table did bend a little bit, but did not break. But he still got the pin on Adonis, and they still won the match. I gotta say, DeAngelo Williams' performance, and I think Don West said it at one point, you know, this guy he still is not signed to any football team yet. He should consider a career in wrestling. He's still young enough to do it. Hey, I'm all for it. After this match, I'm like, this guy should train for like another 6 months and become a wrestler. The beginning of 2018, just wrestle and just to have a good time. That would be awesome. And there's no way that TNA could screw up with him. Because he's a former football player who came in with celebrity status. That's part of what this match was built around, was the fact that they had a celebrity who is a real pro wrestling fan and wanted to go in there and compete. And they said he was good friends with Moose. I'm not shocked, considering the fact that Moose before that was a football player. And there was also like a couple like football people with Williams and Moose, but it was really just Williams and Moose. There was really no interference. Before the next match started, though, they were about to walk away. Moose and Williams went up to the ramp, beat on Christopher Adonis, threw Eli Drake back in the ring, and then Moose hit a power bomb. They actually used the table, and Moose hit a power bomb through the table to Eli Drake. So at least we did get a table spot. Next match, it was actually a nice solid match for probably the best celebrity match ever, so to speak. Next was EC3 and James Storm. It was a strap match. Now, if you recall, over a month earlier, EC3 turned heel on Storm and beat the piss out of James Storm with a belt. And of course, there was great build-up. The heel EC3 is back, which heel EC3 is the best EC3. And it was made to a strap match like a few weeks ago. They had a match. They had a good match here. It was short. It was only like a 10-minute long match. But it was still a fun match. There was a spot where they did hit each other with the strap. James Storm was completely serious here. No smiling, no playing with the crown. He was completely serious. He at one point did hit he had outside the ring, he had EC3 in a spine buster position, then hit him against the apron, which had to hurt. That had to suck. Then there was a point when EC3 took the control. He was beating on James Storm. A couple times throughout the match, he was choking James Storm with the strap. And then he tried. It's like he not that James Storm hulked up or anything, but then EC3 hit James Storm a few times with the strap. After a little bit, like, it wasn't affecting Storm. I love the camera shot. He looked at EC3. This was behind Storm. He looked at EC3. You see EC3's face, and he looks at the strap. Then he looks at Storm. He's like confused, like, why is this not hurting you? I guess he forgot that Storm is the babyface. James Storm, made a comeback. It didn't last that long though. Eventually, EC3 did take control. He used the strap to his advantage when Storm was on the top rope and threw him to the mat. And then he hit the TKO. After he hit the TKO, he went outside and he grabbed a pair of handcuffs. Now, in the build-up, I believe this was actually when he first attacked Storm over a month ago, with the belt. He attacked Storm. He used handcuffs, and he basically handcuffed James Storm to the ring ropes. And then EC3 beat the piss out of this guy with the belt. Now, he was going to do the same thing here. He had the key over around his neck like a necklace. He had the handcuffs. And we didn't get the best camera shot, but he was trying to handcuff James Storm to the turnbuckle, to one of the turnbuckles, and then EC3, and James Storm ended up fighting back and actually put EC3 in the turnbuckle, and then, actually, before Storm started hitting him, EC3, at first he begged, nothing happened. Then he said, God, what did he say? I think he said, he told James Storm to eat his ass, and then spits on James Storm's face. This was the impetus for James Storm to just beat the shit out of EC3 with the strap over and over and over again, like he said he would do last week on Impact. And they've even made a stat where EC3 did hit James Storm 31 times with the strap. Storm ended up hitting EC3 32 times with the strap. So, their backs were red. Because these were stiff strap shots. I think James Storm went for a last call super kick. Either he went for a last call super kick or he actually stole EC3's moves and got him for the 1%er. EC3 kicked out. He rolled out of the ring. He somehow got loose from the strap. Basically, he untied the strap from him, and Storm was on the outside of the ring. And when he had the opportunity, the unstrapped EC3 took the rope, or it was really just a strap. It was not a rope. He took the strap and just pulled James Storm head first. Thankfully, he had his hand up, but head first into the turnbuckle, and not the turnbuckle, into the ring post. Hit the 1%er in the ring, and Storm kicked out. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. James Storm. Actually, no, what happened was he kept on getting up. He begged EC3 to hit him. He slapped Storm across the face. Storm slapped him in the face and then hit the last call super kick. EC3, he didn't fall down, but he was on he fell on the ropes. And Storm was waiting for another last call, but then he just keeled over. And the story is that Storm's head hit the ring post so hard that he eventually knocked him loopy, and he just went down for the count. EC3, after recovering for a second, realized that he had the advantage and hit a variation of the pedigree. It was like think of Awesome Kong's finisher, or at least one of, which she raised her opponent and then landed her back down in like a pedigree style move. It was like that. It was like a sit-out pedigree. A sit-out elevated pedigree. It's basically what the move was. After that, EC3 pinned Storm and he won the match. The right guy did win here. He should have won. I gotta admit, either he was legitimately hurt, and I don't think he was, or in my opinion, Storm was selling really good because this guy really sold it like he was hurt. I mean, after the match was over, after a brief backstage scene with Karen Jarrett and Dutch Mantell looking for Bruce Pritchard because Bruce Pritchard was missing from the show. James Storm was still selling the fact he was hurt. As somebody was coming out for the next match, I believe it was the Pope. Pope was not on commentary tonight. He made his way to the commentary table because he did commentary with both Jeremy Borash and Josh Mathews, which was the next match. It was their tag title match. Yeah, this is actually a good match. It wasn't great because it only went a little over 10 minutes. It only went about 10 minutes, but it was still good and it was still fun. Next we had Jeremy Borash and Joseph Park against Josh Mathews and Scott Steiner, Big Papa Pump. And instead, this match again only went like 10 minutes, but instead of having a 10-minute stinker in the ring, instead what they did, they took a different route. They did a couple of moves in the ring, and then they ran out of the arena and then did some pre-taped stuff, which wasn't as good, but a la similar to Final Deletion. Although I will say though, in the ring, and keep in mind, Josh Mathews was on the first season of Tough Enough many years ago, the one that Maven and Nydia won. This guy is athletic. He's small, but he's athletic. So yeah, they did wrestle in the ring for like a couple minutes, but then they left the ring. They ran out. There was a part where Scott Steiner was held up one of the steel barricades and tried to throw it at Borash and Park. I'm gonna try to explain all this because this is really kind of like similar to a Final Deletion match. And what do I mean? Well, basically they went to pre-taped footage. Steiner and Mathews was chasing Jeremy Borash and Joseph Park on a go-kart. At one point, and then after going around a corner, they hit the go-kart with a fire extinguisher, which did give us a funny moment and only served to piss off Scott Steiner. Then they stole some dude's minivan or truck, whatever. Pretty sure it was a minivan, which reminded me of Deleter Decay when Rosemary raped that one dude, and Decay stole that guy's truck. But yeah, they stole the truck. And one thing I will say about these pre-taped parts is because it allowed Scott Steiner to say things like Mathews was driving. He said, "Chase their fat asses," and he's like, and then Borash and Mathews fought in a pool. They mocked each other. Borash hit like a somersault onto Josh Mathews in the pool. Scott Steiner was beating on Joseph Park somewhere else, ran him through a wall, and then he said, "One fat ass down, another to go." That was funny. Back to the pool, Josh Mathews was beating up and choking Jeremy Borash in the pool. Then all of a sudden, we see the return of Shark Boy. Yes, Shark Boy came back and interfered, and I think put the fin on top of the mask of his head inside on Mathews. I thought he almost raped Mathews with his fin. I hope to God that did not happen. But he said, "Oh, shell yeah," underwater. Then he told Jeremy Borash to run and to win. Mathews chased him. But then, what happened, I love this part. We see a beaten Joseph Park. And then from the light, we see none other than the return of a bald person, but the return of James Mitchell. That's right, Abyss's former manager in TNA. James Mitchell came in and said it was time to put on the mask. He held Abyss's mask, not his old one that he wore early in his career, or even the later half mask, but the one he wore for a couple years there from 2014 to 2016 until he joined Decay. Jeremy Borash went back to the ringside. This is when we saw Robert Irvine and in the crowd. He actually pushed down Mathews, but he thought better than to screw with Scott Steiner. I don't care how built Irvine is. You're not built like Scott Steiner was. Borash eventually took control one-on-one against Mathews, but then Scott Steiner came in. He beat up Borash. Mathews begged to do the Steiner recliner, I believe the move was called. Basically the Campbell clutch. But then Shark Boy came back down to try to help Borash. Immediately got his ass kicked when he suffered a couple of suplexes by Scott Steiner. And then Abyss came down and beat with James Mitchell. His music played. Beat the shit out of both Scott Steiner and Josh Mathews. James Mitchell gave him a bag of thumbtacks. Abyss poured down the thumbtacks onto the floor, and I think was about to give a choke slam to Josh Mathews, but he got out of it. But then he ran right into a black hole slam onto the thumbtacks. Jeremy Borash hit a top rope splash, and Abyss got the pin. I will say the one confusing part was, wait a minute, if this was technically a Joseph Park and Jeremy Borash, why did Abyss get the pinfall? Even with that little mistake, it was still a fun match. Jeremy Borash did get a couple thumbtacks in his hands after that splash. And look, I know technically the Abyss characters played out, but if getting Abyss back means that we get to see James Mitchell again on Impact, I'm all for it, because I love James Mitchell. That guy's awesome. Next was the Full Metal Mayhem match between Davey Richards and Angelina Love against Eddie Edwards and his wife Alisha, or Alisha Edwards. This match was really good. This was probably the third best match of the night, although this match suffered from one thing, and it was none of the wrestlers' fault. This match only went 8.5 minutes. I am dead fucking serious. This was a short match, but I gotta admit, the short match that we got, it was actually a lot of fun. They came down. Alisha hit a top rope splash from the inside of the ring to the outside on the turnbuckle. Weapons were galore. Before Angelina Love and Davey Richards could even finish their entrances, Eddie and Alisha Edwards just came down to try to beat the piss out of both Love and Richards. I loved how even though she didn't do that bad, thankfully she picked her spots well. I love how they kept on saying, Angelina Love is more experienced than Alisha Edwards, even though if you look at most of her career, Angelina Love sucked as an in-ring performer. She wasn't as bad as Velvet Sky, but she was bad. There was one, she tried to hit she hit basically a spinebuster / slam to Alisha Edwards on a ladder that was posted in the corner. Davey Richards hit an exploder suplex to Edwards on their apron. They were beating up Alisha and Eddie with kendo sticks and steel chairs. Alisha got a counter by hitting a fisherman suplex on a steel chair to Angelina. For a while it was just the guys. After Davey tried to throw Eddie into the ladder. Eddie stopped, and Davey ran after him and basically hit a counter sling belly to belly suplex onto the ladder, which had to hurt, of course. Then after several trash can shots to the heads of both competitors, they put the Edwards, put a trash can lid, a trash can over the heads of both Davey and Angelina, and with 2 kendo sticks, they hit both of them simultaneously. And immediately afterwards, of course, Eddie Edwards hit a power bomb. Actually, she used Alisha allowed Eddie to use her as a weapon, so he could hit a power bomb to Alisha onto Davey Richards. And by the way, I gotta admit, Alisha Edwards, she's freaking hot. Eddie Edwards scored big time by getting in with Alisha. Eventually, after that, Angelina eventually she hit the Eddie Edwards a couple times, and she actually broke the kendo stick, at least the handle of it, hitting Eddie Edwards a couple times, and then there was a brain buster onto a steel chair. This was spot after spot after spot, basically. There was even a moment when Angelina took a cup of thumbtacks and shoved several of them into Eddie Edwards' mouth while Davey Richards kicked him in the face. That was awesome. Crowd was definitely into this match. Alisha Edwards low-blowed Davey Richards twice, and then Eddie Edwards hit the Boston Knee Party. We saw blood on the bridge of Angelina's nose. Then there was a spot. We came to the final spot of the match where there was a. Okay, so imagine this. There's a 6-sided ring. There is a table set up on the left side of the ring, fully set up. A ladder next to that table, and then a ladder that was leaning against the middle turnbuckle. What happened was Eddie Edwards was setting up Davey Richards on the setup table. Was gonna climb the ladder, presumably for a double foot stomp. Then Angelina came in to try to attack Edwards. Tried to attack Eddie. Alisha came in, hit a power bomb to Angelina on the unset-up table, and then after beating up, after a couple of headbutts, unprotected headbutts that is, from Davey Richards, beat up Davey, and then hit a somersault power bomb onto the setup table, and after that, Eddie pinned Davey for the win. This match was short. And I wish it went like 10 minutes longer, but this was still a really good match. And I guess if there was any positive to this, it's that having the match short hid the weaknesses of both Alisha and Angelina. Because I have no doubt that Alisha probably has not been wrestling for that long, and Angelina Love sucks in the ring. It seems like every TNA comeback she ever made, she was worse and worse in the ring. Next match was the second best match of the night, which was Low-Ki and Sonjay Dutt 2 out of 3 falls match for the X Division Championship. Sonjay Dutt came in as X Division Champion, finally. After many years of being called the best ever X Division wrestler to never win the title, he finally won it a few weeks ago in Mumbai, India. These guys had a kick-ass. These guys had it was actually a slower-paced X Division style match, but it worked here. It worked for the story. It was two veterans trying to feel each other out. I actually liked the match and how they worked it. This, to me, was the second best match of the night. Several bits of chain wrestling here. Some stiff shots from Low-Ki, and if you wrestled Low-Ki and you've seen him wrestle, you know that the guy is stiff when it comes. The guy can be a stiff wrestler. There wasn't really that way in terms of high spots. There wasn't a lot of high spots in this match, which made the high spots that did happen mean a little bit more, which I have to say was a good thing. Because if we just got nothing but high spots in this match, and I know where some people might be put off by the fact that there wasn't as many high spots and it felt like they didn't kick into second gear. I think they were in just the right gear they should have been, because if they just had another high spot match, it would have been the same thing as we already got that in the opening tag team championship match. So they worked a smart wrestling match here with a little bit of high flying, but it was mostly smart wrestling. Sonjay, and it was a 2 out of 3 falls match, by the way, just to remind you. Sonjay Dutt tried to hit the double moonsault foot stomp. The moonsault double foot stomp onto Low Ki, got out of the way, hit a sick running drop kick. Then, after a little bit of finagling, Sonjay Dutt went for a top rope hurricane rana, but then Low Ki countered it into the pinning attempt, and then hit a quick Warrior's Way or a double foot stomp for the first pin. They kept on calling each foot stomp Warrior's Way, even though technically it's only Low Ki's move. This is when they went for a little bit more high flying, but not too much. They went outside again in front of Robert Irvine. Both of them at one point got shoved into the barricade where Irvine was. Low Ki shoved Dutt into the turnbuckle outside. That had to hurt. Even though it didn't get much of a reaction, it had to hurt. Low Ki played possum by pretending to have a hurt foot after a failed double foot stomp. He played possum, but then when the referee was out of the way and distracted Sonjay Dutt, Low Ki hit the springboard kick, like Cody Rhodes' disaster kick, which is a move he's been doing for years, way before Cody Rhodes ever did, but only got a 2 count. Tried to hit a Warrior's Way onto Sonjay Dutt on the steel steps outside, and which would have been a cool spot if he actually hit it, but he did not. Then Sonjay Dutt hit an Asai moonsault, basically, from the middle rope, of course. The Asai moonsault onto Low Ki outside. Sonjay Dutt went for a Boston Crab on the hurt foot, because at this point, Low Ki's right foot actually was hurt a little bit. Not kayfabe, of course, storyline. Tried to hit the Boston Crab, the single leg crab, I should say, onto the foot. Low Ki was slingshotted through the corner. Hit another double foot stomp, but he did not get the pin. Went for a dragon sleeper, a crouched dragon sleeper, but then Sonjay Dutt countered into a pin and got the second fall. Then Sonjay Dutt, took off the jacket of his suit. Because keep in mind, he's been dressing as the Hitman. Because he actually kind of looks like a Hitman in that suit. You know, the Hitman from the video game. Worked punches on Sonjay Dutt. None of them who really connected all that well, I gotta say. Then, this was the final stretch of the match, I believe. When both of them were going for their moves. Low Ki hit the title crush, I think. Which is basically, it was basically that jump, and then the flip, and then the kick in the corner to Sonjay Dutt. Hit the key crusher. That didn't work. And when he went for another, and after another finagling, couple of kicks from Sonjay Dutt, they were in the turnbuckle on the right side of the ring. He crouched, Low Ki did, crouched Dutt, basically chest and head first into the turnbuckle. Had Sonjay Dutt in the Tree of Woe, but then Sonjay Dutt used Low Ki's tie to pull him down. I guess what happened was he was going to do the Warrior's Way while Sonjay Dutt was in the Tree of Woe. He pulled Low Ki's tie down. Low Ki landed on the mat in the ring. And then Sonjay Dutt hit the moonsault double foot stomp for the win, successfully defending the X Division Championship at Slammiversary. This was a really, really good match. I understand why some people might be put off by it because they expected more high flying, but keep in mind the age of these guys also. Sonjay Dutt is in his mid to late 30s. Low Ki is a year or two shy of being 40. He's like a year shy of being 40. They can't do the constant flips and kicks like they did 10 years ago when they were a hell of a lot younger. Or it just wouldn't work that way. So I think they worked a really smart competitive X Division Championship match. And, good for Sonjay Dutt. He still is the X Division Champion. I hope the reign goes on to at least Bound for Glory. Maybe even past that. Out next was the semi-main event, which was the first of 2 unification matches between the GFW Women's Champion, Sienna, against the Impact Women's Champion, Rosemary. Gail Kim, who, if you saw my One Night Only Live review, I mentioned that she was no longer with the company. She did come out for, I guess, a special guest appearances. And I gotta say, maybe it was because of the ponytail or the hairstyle, but 6 months ago, she looked her age. She looked like 40 or 41 back at One Night Only Live. Here she looked younger. Maybe it was, I don't know what it was, but she looked younger here. Maybe it's the fact that she let her hair down. Sometimes women, when you let their hair down, you don't, and you just do it like that, they look younger. Out came Sienna wearing a freaky looking peacock outfit. I mean, this brought me back bad memories of Katy Perry's Peacock song, because I fucking hate Katy Perry. Maybe she did it to troll me, I don't know. Out came Rosemary with actually a pretty cool entrance. Basically a bunch of zombie ladies with makeup, similar to Rosemary's, came out. Rosemary came out with a cool looking mask. Gail Kim was basically the special, I guess the person who would present the championships to whoever. Shook the hands of both, or tried to anyway, of both Rosemary and Sienna. And then the match started. Out of all the matches on the show, I will say this is the one I like the least. And again, if you watched my TNA One Night Only Live pay-per-view, I'm like, this has the potential to be a good match, because they had a short 8-minute match at One Night Only Live, and it was actually pretty good for the time that they got. Here, they immediately went to fight each other. Then KM, not long afterward, KM and the crazy Laurel Van Ness came out to try to, I guess, to put an intimidation factor on Rosemary. Eventually, they did distract her. Sienna took advantage because apparently, sorry about that. Sienna took advantage briefly, and then Rosemary threw Sienna out towards Laurel Van Ness, who was still acting crazy, and because with the makeup and the old wedding dress and everything, acting crazy. And Sienna was basically like, I can't take it with you out here. I don't need this. KM, who by the way is her cousin in storyline, take her to the back and leave ringside. And that's exactly where they did. And for most of the rest of the match, that's where they were gone. At least both of them were. Rosemary hit a dive from inside the ring to the outside. Then they worked up a pretty they were working a decent match. Both of them hit German suplexes on each other at several points. Rosemary was awesome here because I love Rosemary. I think everybody who watches TNA loves Rosemary, or GFW now, I guess, or Impact, whatever. She again hit that like scissor, like kind of like Tajiri's tarantula. She had like the scissor leg lock against the rope, similar to how Tajiri hit the tarantula on people. Sienna briefly took advantage. She at one point even crotch chopped the crowd with her pinkies, because apparently she's a pinky person. Was even biting on Rosemary's pinky at one point during one of the submissions. On the top ropes, Sienna was in a tree of woe. I guess she was going to go for a back suplex on Sienna. That was the idea. Then Sienna dropped her on the tree of woe, trying to get out of the turnbuckle, but too late. Sienna hit like basically a German suplex from the top rope while still in the tree of woe. Missile drop kick from the top. Rosemary took advantage. Hit a couple of exploder suplexes, I think. Sienna fought back. Eventually, later on, she did hit the pounce. Well, it basically was the pounce. They call it the silencer, but if you're familiar with Monty Brown and his work in TNA, that's basically her move, is the pounce. Rosemary hit Red Wedding, which is Brock Lesnar's F5. She had the pin. Earl Hebner was counting, and then Laurel Van Ness came out and threw Earl Hebner out of the, pulled out Earl Hebner out of the ring. Out came Allie with a kendo stick to chase Laurel out of the way. Sienna used the GFW bell as a weapon, hit Rosemary across the face, got a near fall, and Rosemary eventually was signaling to use the mist that she uses in some of her in a lot of her matches. But then Sienna was smart and actually used her hand to cover Rosemary's mouth while she was spitting mist, which made her choke. But the mist was still in her hand, and I guess that still hurts. She went for a red wedding, and but then Sienna used the misted hand she had to rub the mist in Rosemary's eyes. That blinded her for a brief moment. And then Sienna got Rosemary in a guillotine chokehold, and Rosemary had no choice but to tap out. The winner of the unification match is Sienna. And look, here's my problem with this match. First of all, it wasn't horrible. It definitely was not horrible. My problem with this match is it's the same argument with the Money in the Bank women's ladder match that I used during the Money in the Bank pay-per-view review. It's not who won. It's not who won that was the problem. I'm glad Sienna won. I love Rosemary, but I'm glad Sienna won. But my problem is how the match ended. Not even so much the mist finish. That mist part of the finish was actually pretty creative. I don't think I've seen that before. No, my problem is the interference from Laurel Van Ness and KM, specifically Laurel Van Ness. You have an important women's unification match, and you have constant interference here. And because the match was short, it was a lot more apparent. It did happen in the main event, which I will discuss, but at least it was sorry about that. At least it was short and it was fun. Here it was not fun. Laurel Van Ness at the beginning was a fun, crazy character, but we already have that in Rosemary. Seriously, they have to change the Laurel Van Ness character back to just being a regular old heel. But I think the right person probably did win, even though I love Rosemary. Out next was, actually before we got to the main event, Jeff Jarrett came out for a brief promo, basically thanking the fans for his comeback and for everything that's been going on recently. It's a nice thank you promo, basically. Lashley came out with a bunch of MMA guys, including King Mo, who stayed at ringside. The MMA guys, the MMA entourage went to the back. Alberto Del Rio came out with Dos Caras and El Hijo Dos Caras, which is his brother, and Dos Caras is his father. Dos Caras and King Mo stayed at ringside. Everyone else went to the back. These guys, I did see a couple reviews online that said that it was an okay main event. I thought this was actually a good main event. Marred a little bit, yes, probably by the antics of King Mo and Dos Caras, but that was few and far between. That was only early and late in the match, but that was about it. Other than that, it was straight up action between Alberto El Patron and Lashley. There was a spot where Lashley did hit a power. It wasn't that strong looking, but it was a power slam onto the steel, which was awesome. That was pretty good. These guys worked a nice little main event with Lashley using the power advantage, but Alberto's not a skinny guy. He's also kind of a ripped guy. He had a superplex from the top rope that didn't work. They tried doing moves on each other. I was actually hoping Lashley would pull out the Dominator. That did not happen in this match. These guys, they hit a bunch of punches and kicks. Lashley at one point went for after El Patron was beating on Lashley with punches in the corner, Lashley had a running power slam, which looked bad. And by bad, I didn't mean like he did it wrong, but bad as in like it looked like it hurt. Of course, the target for Lashley, at least for Patron on Lashley, was the arm. He worked on the arm trying to get the arm bar on, which for some reason they kept on calling it an arm breaker, even though while it could break arms, it's not called the arm breaker. It's still an arm bar. At one point, Patron went for a dive and looked like he almost landed head first, which had to suck for Patron. Thankfully, he landed headfirst on the mat, not on the concrete, like a couple inches away. So that would have been bad. Patron at one point hit a tilt-a-whirl DDT, which didn't look like it hit too much, but the point of that spot was to hit the tilt-a-whirl DDT and then go for the armbar, which Lashley tried so valiantly to break apart. He eventually hit a, he got out of it, Lashley did, with a powerbomb. He muscled up El Patron for a powerbomb, and which was cool. At one point, he basically, they called it a Death Valley Driver, but he basically hit an FU onto from the top rope. Lashley hit the FU or an attitude adjustment, whatever you want to call it. I still like to call it an FU when John Cena doesn't use it. From the top rope to El Patron on the mat. Lashley only got a near fall out of it. That's when Lashley kept on slapping the shit out of Patron, basically mocking both him and Dos Caras. King Mo at one point, like immediately before that, grabbed the chair. Lashley. El Patron tried to hit that super kick while Lashley was on his knees, got a near fall. Hit a brief Tree of Woe double foot stomp. He wasn't in the Tree of Woe, but he was hanging in the ropes. And he briefly hit the double foot stomp, pseudo double foot stomp, I should say. Got a near fall. King Mo tried to get involved. He got pushed by El Patron. Not El Patron, but King Mo pushed back. Lashley got his own armbar in here. Keep in mind, he is an MMA guy. El Patron was able to get out of it, though. Lashley hit a spear, like, immediately afterwards. Got a near fall, which Lashley was just, like, bewildered by. Then El Patron hit his own spear to Lashley. Both of them barreled outside the ring. King Mo tried to get involved. Dos Caras pushed King Mo aside and then kicked him right in the balls. And to which Lashley slapped around Dos Caras for that. The announcers, the commentary did say you shouldn't be pushing around a legend like that. But I was saying to myself, didn't Dos Caras just kick King Mo in the balls? I think Lashley has a right to do that, especially since King Mo is significantly younger than Dos Caras. Lashley while he was on the apron, telling Dos Caras to get the hell out of there. El Patron hit a enziguri to Lashley, rammed him into the, I believe head first, into the ring post outside. He barreled through, Lashley did, through the ropes, hanging inside the ring, and then from the either middle or top turnbuckle, I'm pretty sure it was the middle rope on the turnbuckle, El Patron hit the double foot stomp for the win to win the Impact Wrestling Championship and to unify the titles. I did hear that they are making new designs for each of the belts, so there is that. People came out to congratulate El Patron, including Sonjay Dutt, who, of course, including Sonjay Dutt, El Hijo de Fantasma came out. I think Ishimori came out, which was pretty cool. The representatives of Crash, Noah, and the other promotions came in. AAA. It was pretty cool. It was to signify a good night for TNA. And I got it, and it was actually a pretty good match, despite the interference here. It got in the way a little bit, but it was still kind of fun, kind of like it was for the opening tag team match. The interference in the women's match was not fun. It wasn't. Mainly because I'm just so sick of seeing Laurel Van Ness all the time. Maybe that was it. Maybe I'm just so sick of Laurel that I don't care anymore. I really don't. I care about KM, even though I don't see him all that much on TV. I care about Sienna. I don't care about Laurel. At this point, she's played out. Especially since, she's not even really feuding with Allie all that. Well, she is feuding with Allie, but that feud is not going anywhere for either of the women. So outside of that one women's match, there was only one pseudo bad match on the show. It wasn't even that bad. It was just marred. But other than that, really good show here, I gotta say. This was a good show. This was much better than the last pay-per-views from that WWE's been hashing out, with overall not so good undercards with a awesome main event. While none of the matches on this show were of the level of the men's Money in the Bank or the Fatal 5-Way Extreme Rules match, this was still an overall better show than the other shows in the past few months. So, thumbs up for me. And for GFW's official first show under that banner. So that's my review. Until next time, guys, be well, stay safe, have a good day. And I will see you next time with my WCPW Lights Out review. Until then, next time, guys, peace.